We have a few folks that are coming into the room now, but if I could, I would like to introduce Dr. Mary Ann Feldheim, and she can introduce our last discussion.
Thank you, Justin. I would just like to say thank you to all of the speakers. It has been exciting and interesting so far. So Dr. Thomas Bryer, who gave us our keynote, will be doing our debrief session. And the idea here is to find a way with a takeaway. How do each of us in some way incorporate what we've learned today, heard about today, and pledge to either change ourselves, our organizations, or a greater change to our communities. So without further ado, Dr. Thomas Bryer, please take it away.
Thank you, Mary Ann, and it's welcome back everybody to the final session. Any Zoom day that's more than 1 hour in front of the computer is a long Zoom day, so congratulations to making it to the end of the day here. And to echo Justin and Mary Ann, I hope it's been a productive day with rich discussion and giving us a lot of ideas to take away. And this is the purpose of our closing debrief session. What exactly are we taking away? What are we committing to do maybe a little bit differently or a lot differently in order to act on our values, to lead forward in a way that moves our communities, that evolves our organizations, and so on. After the morning sessions during the lunch period, I caught up a little bit on the news, and I opened up the Orlando Sentinel online. I'm going to post a link in the chat box for you to take a look at later if you wish, but there's an article in today's Sentinel. The title is "In Time of COVID, Central Florida Charities Reel and Reinvent." There's no better day that they could have published as Kate Santich over at the Sentinel, who published this article, wrote this article. She interviews folks from United Way, from Salvation Army, a couple of others, talking about the unique challenges of operating a nonprofit organization and meeting the increased demands during this time of COVID. So we've had certainly some of that conversation today. Karen Broussard at Second Harvest Food Bank, for instance, spoke about the increase in food demand by 1,800% in some cases, so more than double. And so just mind-boggling statistics on the increased demand that we have to deal with as a community. So I've asked the three moderators of the sessions that preceded this to come prepared either for them to report out or for them to identify a member of their group to report on the kinds of commitments folks seem to be ready to make to do things differently, either small things or big things. And I'd like to frame it, and if I can, ask them to think on their feet a little bit. They can say whatever they want to say, but if Kate Santich at the Orlando Sentinel were to write another article in 6 months, what would the title of the article be based on the commitments that folks are making here today? So the title that she wrote now is "In Time of COVID, Central Florida Charities Reel and Reinvent." What is it? What is the headline 6 months from now? In the emergence from COVID, in time of social stress and pressure, whatever it is, Central Florida nonprofit organizations and charities, X and Y. What is that X and Y? What are they doing differently? What does that headline look like? So the three moderators from the preceding sessions were Mark Brewer, talking about aligning the Sustainable Development Goals with nonprofit work in Central Florida and elsewhere. Vanessa Littleton moderated the session on pursuing diversity and inclusion and empowerment. And Rachel Allen and William Jefferson discussed identifying disparities to pursuing opportunity, or disparities to opportunity. And so if I can quite randomly ask Mark to kick us off and either report out on behalf of his group or ask one of his participants to report out. What are the commitments that we heard in your session, Mark?
Thanks, Dr. Bryer. Well, some of my team is here, so I'm happy if anybody wants to fill in if I leave something out. We had a deep discussion about the Sustainable Development Goals and how people can use them. And I think most nonprofits recognize the difference between having data and getting data. And the team, we had a broad range of people from small who don't have data to those who are doing data projects. And my sense, what I got from our short discussion was that people want to collect more data. They want to find a way to get it, but they want to do it in a reasonable way. And that would tie to your future headline, the ability for nonprofits to identify that they were actually moving the needle on things that the world thinks is important. And we have sustainable development goals to track.
Great. Are there any members of Mark's group that want to jump in and offer any individual commitments that you're thinking about making, having heard what you have, not only in his session, but throughout the day? I'm going to do the terrible teacher thing and name names, but that requires a first step that I see who was in Mark's group. If you were in Mark's group, please raise your virtual hand.
Well, this is Mary Ann. I was in Mark's group. So I do want to do a shout out to Caitlin Augustine, who was in the group and who is working for an organization called Data Kind that is actually doing this sort of work. And she offered, and maybe Caitlin can put that in the chat, the potential for pro bono assistance in gathering data. We spent a lot of time talking about how scary data could be for a nonprofit, that how is it going to be used? Is it going to be used to help me, or is it going to be used to in some way hinder my ability to get funding or to get support? So Mark gave a really good, and this isn't a personal goal, but he gave a really great idea that nonprofits should work with funders who would be willing to help support the data gathering. And also that organizations like Data Kind should also work with funders so that nonprofits don't have to invest their own resources and energy in collecting this data, but could get funding to support it. So I thought that was a really important piece, because for many, gathering data can be scary because you don't know how it's going to be used, or is it really going to help you accomplish those outcomes that you are seeking.
Thank you, Mary Ann, and it's good to see you, Caitlin, and I'd love to catch up on what's happening with Data Kind, and she's just posted in the chat box so we can see some more information about that. Also in the chat box, I see a couple of comments from Elaine Hill saying, I am going to join the NAACP. Elaine, if you're willing to come off mute and tell us a little bit more. Is this new for you? What's the significance of this move for you and your organization?
Hi. No, it's not really new for me. I've been donating to organizations like Urban League and Black Votes Matter and Stacey Abrams' campaign in 2018. And I've really been, doing a lot of educating myself. I discovered Richard Rothstein's The Color of Law, which was amazing. And, a lot of other articles that you can find on Urban League website. So no, it's not new to me, but I did ask in the session prior to this if there were other suggestions of other things I could do. And that was one of them. And I was happy to get that. I also just, I do share other perspectives with people when they say things that are ignorant. And I mean, I think that's important for all of us to do. And I just want to do everything I possibly can to support racial equity and the change in our society. And I'm partially depressed by it and partially hopeful.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing. And for those, I think we still have at least one or two from South Africa on the conference with us here. NAACP, if you're not aware, is the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. So you have the full context of what that's about. And then we have Helen, who is saying that she and her organization, the Foundation for Foster Children, will work to expand our horizons. So can you say a little bit more, Helen? What does that mean, expand the horizons? How are you thinking to do it?
Hi, sorry about that. Can you hear me?
We can.
Well, you know, we have been for a while struggling with, we're based in Winter Park. We're a local organization, and we tend to kind of stay within the confines of Central Florida, and even more so in particularly Winter Park, Orlando, and then, you know, we really have not done a whole lot of research into reaching out into communities of color. One of the meetings I was at today, one of the presenters talked about the Muslim community and how diverse that community is, and how giving they are, and that was wonderful to hear. So just trying to broaden how we think about our donors and the community at large. So that's been very interesting for me.
Very good. Thank you, Helen. And Doug Goodman is observing that NAACP membership is only $30. It sounds like Doug is advocating that we all join NAACP at that price, but it's not just NAACP. There are lots of great organizations that allow us, and part of what the discussion we had earlier today, do we do it as individuals? Do we do it institutionally as organizations? How do we identify as organizations with some of these other organizations? How do we cross lists and collaborate and coordinate in a way that links us together, arm in arm, as we're running zigzag, to revisit my words from this morning. So we've got that, and Vanessa Littleton is coming in to say maybe this is a commitment, working with organizations to use social media to promote values. So let me, Vanessa, let me use this as a segue to you and your group, if I can. First, tell us what you're doing with social media. It sounds like maybe you attended the session with Chow Guo and Greg Saxton, excuse me. And so say a little bit more about that, and then tell us how would you and your group commit to changing that Orlando Sentinel headline?
Yeah, so I'll talk briefly about the comment I posted in the chat, then I'll turn it over to Greg so he can follow up with what we talked about. But I heard what you said early this morning. Even though I'm in California, I was up at 6 o'clock this morning to hear your opening comment, and I jotted down a note that says build social media, not just to promote yourselves, but to show your values. So I'm dropping in the chat my personal website that it's a WordPress that I set up a couple of years ago. And so I think I've done a really good job that if anybody looks at that, they can see very clearly what my values are, what my priorities are, how I center my research. I center the work that I do in my personal and my professional life. And so in my current institution, one of the things that I'm faced with is a horrible website and just a lack of a social media presence. And so, Tom, I know this is one of your areas of expertise. So I have been thinking about, like, how do we brand ourselves? Because we are an institution and a department that we have some really core and really poignant values where we value community service, that connection we have with the community, the work that our students do with nonprofit organizations. In our undergraduate program, they all do 240 hours of working in experiential experiences in the community for over 3 semesters. So it's a substantial commitment. But if you look at our social media presence, if you look at our website, you don't see that. And so when you said it, it just kind of stuck with me. we need to let the world know what we're doing here. We need to let people know what our values are, because I think if we did, it would resonate with more people, and it could be more powerful, not just to recruit more students into the campus, but to think about the community where our students are actually working and serving. So I think it could have a reciprocal effect in that regard. So I thought that the comment was very poignant, and I just wanted to say that that's definitely something that I'm going to commit to doing over the next year.
Brilliant. Thank you, Vanessa. Now, then Greg, I guess you're speaking on behalf of that group then.
Yes, I jotted down a few things. I think the headline 6 months from now might be that nonprofits use this time to open up a conversation which led to some specific actions. That might, this tumultuous time allows for some foment for people to think about things. And so leap into that discussion. Some of the things that we listed in our chat room as far as commitments, a couple of people sought specific things to read, which Dr. Lopez Littleton responded to, as well as other folks. And so first, a commitment to broadening our understanding of the topic. Second was a commitment to vote, to be part of the conversation that way. Third, we've already seen Elaine, she committed to joining the NAACP, and we discussed that. We also had another person who committed to taking back to their board a discussion about diversity and diversifying the board leadership, which then would lead to other changes possibly. And leveraging the power of the university as a way to support nonprofits and engage in the conversation was another task. So I think generally speaking up and beginning that conversation, which then can lead to some specific actions. And I hope that captured it. Anybody else want to add anything, please do.
So that's the open invitation to that group. And does anybody have anything to add, supplement what Greg has said, or any personal commitments that you are making for yourself or your organization? I like the idea of broadening the reading list, and I'd be curious to know if y'all spoke about specific readings. And one thing that's that I always enjoy doing with my students in my courses is to introduce them to readings and require them to read non-traditional academic texts. So I love the use of fiction in my classes to bring everybody into a common dialogue about difficult issues. And for the kinds of issues that we're discussing today, the author Colson Whitehead is one of my favorites to bring us into these conversations. For instance, this semester, I've used two of his books in two different classes. One, The Nickel Boys, which is his most recent book about the Dozier School here in Florida that shut down only just a few years ago, but was for more than a century operating as a reform school for boys that led to the abuse and torture and killing of some of the kids, the boys who were enrolled at that school. Fascinating fictional story. It's an incredible real life story ripped from the headlines here in Florida. But that kind of story leads us into conversation about complicity. It gets us into conversation about racism and anti-racism and racist policies, all of which then can bring us into the stark reality. But the beautiful thing about reading fiction first is it creates a safe space for everybody to speak openly about something that is recognized as a fictional tale. And then we can get into the hard dialogues. Getting into the hard stuff first is always a challenge, depending on what kind of audience you're working with. So I love the idea of the reading. I would be all in favor of creating a reading club or a book club around some of these issues with the nonprofit community here in Central Florida and in South Africa and beyond. So anybody else from that group who wants to share any commitments?
I would just say, Tom, here at UCF, Dr. Zavataro has got a book club going, and the focus right now is the 1619 project. So we're, a slice of us are taking a look at that.
Brilliant. Thank you. Marianne, you unmuted yourself?
I did. I just wanted to point out that Vanessa Lopez Littleton put at least 3 books into the chat. So if people wanted to look at books, there are some that she's recommending.
Yeah, thank you. And in fact, Vanessa, after my students read the Nickel Boys, the book after that was How to Be an Anti-Racist. So two good recommendations there. And Tracy Blue is recommending another reading, it looks like, Emergent Strategy by Adrienne Marie Brown, to frame conversations about diversity and systemic change. So lots of good ideas here. We should have a repository for these kinds of books and post them out. That's something we can maybe think about doing in some way. So keep posting the book recommendations. All right, let's go on to Rachel Allen and William Jefferson and their group, Identifying Disparities. What did you learn? What are your commitments? How are you going to change the headline in the Orlando Sentinel? Do we have Rachel or William here? Okay. Do we have anybody from that group who is here? Okay. Oh, maybe.
Bryer, I was in that group.
Okay.
We had such rich conversation that we did not really, I think it was like 30 seconds before we were supposed to hop on here. We're like, we're supposed to have a thing ready. And we didn't really have a thing ready. But I will say one of the things that was excellent with the 2 speakers in that group was they clearly had a very caring relationship between the 2 of them, where they were both, it was very symbiotic. They were utilizing each other's strengths and building one another up and opening doorways for one another, recognizing that they each had power perhaps within different circles, and one was inviting, one to the other's area of influence and so forth. And between the 2 of them, they were obviously stronger together in being able to share a message to a broader audience. So I thought that was just a really great reminder of how we can't do this work by ourselves. In nonprofits, a lot of times we can get pretty siloed and thinking, we're doing this piece of whatever it is that we do, and we're the only ones, and there's not duplication, because that's a naughty word, right? In the nonprofit world, especially when you're competing for funding and things like that. But you talked about linking arms, this morning, and ways of increasing capacity. And I thought that carried throughout the day as just a really great reminder about, you won't be successful and you will be exhausted if you try to do this work by yourself. And so I thought that was just a really good culminating thought about finding partners with whom you can lean on, but also raise up, that you can open doorways for others too. So I thought about how I could avail myself to additional mentorship opportunities and how I could mentor and grow others as well. So thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Shannon, and thanks for representing your group with those observations. We only have about, we've got 20 minutes left, I guess. Let me, if I can, if they're willing, I see at least one person on the participant list. I haven't scrolled through the whole list here, who's remaining from our group in South Africa. Sean, it's getting late for you now. It's after 10 in the evening, almost 11 in the evening, but if you're still awake enough to share your insights and maybe educate us here in Florida about what's going on in the nonprofit space in South Africa. And has this conversation been useful for you?
Yes. Hello, Tom. Hope you're well. Thank you for allowing us to join. Big shout outs from South Africa to everyone in the States. You are right. I am in my pajamas and getting ready for bed, so I won't put my video on. So if you'll excuse me. But yeah, this conversation has been really encouraging and just kind of really fit in with the environment that we're in. I think this pandemic has been quite global, and so we kind of nonprofits are going through exactly what kind of nonprofit stateside are going through as well. And so it's just been really incredible to spend this, so for us, this evening and then night, just kind of refreshing on, I think really for us to kind of pull through, again, it just, to me, just what resonates is just how we can so easily kind of build resilience and sustainability into financial kind of things. But the reality is actually what is really going to get us through these tough times is going to be the levels of relationships, the speed of trust, that we heard this morning, the kind of the declaration of our values and our team, and just in how we can lean on each other. And so, yes, financial sustainability is obviously vitally important, especially during this time. But yeah, for me, just to refresh kind of in the first session, just our values, declaring boldly who we are, and it just kind of makes me look at of our team who might have been shaken during this time. Actually, I'll look at myself as a leader saying, how often do I review our values? Does everyone who's recently come into Domino, the organization I work at, do they know our purpose statements and do they hold true? And what is that level of relationship and trust that we will all make it through it, or are we actually living in fear? And so I think, yeah, for me, what's been really exciting is also just listening to Mark talk around the linking and aligning to the sustainability goals. And so for me, it's just really trying to understand how do we position ourselves as a nonprofit to then maximize and capitalize on the kind of this next wave where we know the next big focus is actually going to be drawing on those deliverables of the SDGs. That's definitely where we're going to find funders are going, philanthropists are going, and actually it's just for us now as nonprofits, how do we reweave what it is that we are kind of working with to ensure that we are maximizing the benefit through our programs. And again, just what's kind of key that's come out of that is actually the collaboration. And so, yes, we can pivot and change, but also knowing that we've got partners, we can't do this work alone. And so, yeah, for me, those are kind of the big key things. So I'm committing to finding another partner, hopefully local or international for Domino, and then just kind of revisiting our value statements and just trying to really build that level of trust within our teams.
Brilliant. Thank you, Sean, and I appreciate your letting me put you on the spot unannounced. So thank you for that.
No problem.
Let me open it up then for another 5 minutes or so. Does anybody else have any reflections, commitment?
Hi, Dr. Bryer. Yeah, I wanted to just share a quote. I didn't realize that Rachel or William weren't here. I was in the last session with them. And I didn't want to miss my opportunity because he said something really good, but William said, "When I am the most uncomfortable, I am at the deepest level of learning." And that quote really, really, really resonated with me just because of the way that this first half of the year was in terms of just a very big awakening. Not that I think we were all aware that these things were happening, but just the level that it was magnified this year, I think it made hopefully a lot of people uncomfortable. I know I was extremely uncomfortable. But it was when I really sat down with that discomfort and had, those crucial conversations, with friends and family members. And I think as we look into our workspace, I think that's something that we can definitely apply it towards, and just kind of opening up for new perspectives and ideas. And we might not like how it sounds, and we might not like to accept that we've been complicit in that probably. But I thought it was a really great quote. So this was overall just a really, really great conference. We had great panelists. Very eye-opening and thought-provoking conversation. So thank you all for being here. It's been really great to have this space for sure.
Thank you, Silvana. And please type that quote into the chat box. It is a good one. It's a good one for all of us to think about and reflect on deeper. So if you wouldn't mind doing that. Any other closing thoughts, questions for the group? Well, it has been a long day, and I expect fully for myself and for others that questions will emerge as we reflect, as we meditate on some of the ideas that we've heard and some of the words that we've heard spoken and the visuals that we've examined and the data that we've looked at. We will we'll keep the dialogue going. Of course, at the School of Public Administration, at the Center for Public and Nonprofit Management, there are always ways for us to engage with you and you to engage with us. And in these times when our values are being questioned and needing to be defended in some cases, it is vitally important that we lean on each other as we lead forward. And this is our call to end the day today. So with that, I'll turn it back to Marianne Feldheim with the final remarks and instructions, and everybody stay well. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Not sure if I'm, all right, thank you. So thank you for coming, and I want to just recognize our planning team again, Kakali Ahmed, Seng Hoang, Martha Bailey, Silvana Bastante, Tom Bryer, Greg Buckingham, Anna Escamani, Danielle Andal, Darlene Jones, Heather McClellan, Justin Miller, and Rosangela Parker. Now, the other piece is that this was exciting. Great ideas were being shared. I especially liked Tom's in the beginning that are we leaving or are we staying? Are we going to work together to address the issues, or are we going to walk away? Now's the time. That was conveyed in almost all of the sessions. It's a challenging time, but now's the time to act. So to that end, I want to thank our title sponsor, which is Valencia College Foundation, and Dr. Geraldine Gallagher, who provided that title sponsorship. And just to let you all know that the proceeds of this conference go to support student scholarship. So in the final piece, we are recording this conference, and the plan is that within at least the next 2 to 3 weeks, we will be sending that to all the participants. It primarily will look like the program with links to the active either YouTube or another sort of recording. So you will get them. I put my email into the chat so that if you have any questions or concerns, please do contact me, and we'll see if we can follow up with whatever needs. The final piece is that we want to thank you, and please fill out the evaluation. You have the little barcode here. We will also send this out. So here is please scan this. You can fill it out. This is to help us know what we did well, what we need to improve, but also we're asking for ideas for next year's conference. So we're hoping that you can give us great ideas that we can build on. And again, I want to thank all of you for coming, for sharing your ideas, for sharing the enthusiasm, which is so refreshing and wonderful to see. And I love the quote that we did get from William. So with that, we bid you adieu. We hope that all of you have a great afternoon. We will be sending out, and we will look at the chat, and Dr. Bryer talked about a reading list, and I think we can put that together quite well to go along with the program and the recordings. So, and if there are people who would like to follow up, we would love to have that too. So thank you again, Dr. Bryer with his office of an official title here for Dr. Bryer and for the Center for Public and Nonprofit Management, the School of Public Administration. We are very happy to work with everyone in the community, and we would like to exemplify leading forward, acting on our values. So thank you very much. And Justin, I turn it over to you to end our day.
The only thing that I can really reiterate that hasn't already been said is thank you for coming. And as you can see here, you've got a giant QR code that you can actually put up to your phone, or put your phone up to your computer screen and grab that survey right now. Each of these, this same QR code and this conference evaluation is also a link that are in your programs that you received yesterday. And it's the title of the email was, "You'll need this tomorrow." So that attachment actually has the program if you missed that this morning as you logged in. And I hope everyone had a great time, and the feedback will allow us to get better, sharper, and shape how we're thinking about next year. Of course, we don't know what next year holds. So thank you for coming. Thank you for bringing your enthusiasm. And, you know, we feed off of you guys and your hopes and aspirations and willingness to overcome adversity and make the world a better place. And that's a better place for all of us. So I don't think I have anything else to add to that. And thank you one last time.